Take a slow, gentle breath. In this space of stillness, stories become more than just words, they become mirrors. If you resonate with tales that awaken insight and stir the soul, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Journey Deeper. Now let the story unfold. Lara had always believed she was a woman of integrity. She meditated twice a week, worked in a nonprofit that advocated for girls' education, and stayed married to her college sweetheart, Ethan, for over 12 years. From the outside, their life looked almost enviable. An airy townhouse in Portland, weekend hikes, a golden retriever named Bodhi. And yet, under the surface, something was gnawing, something hungry, something she couldn't name. She met Ava at a boutique yoga studio where she had started attending sessions more out of boredom than devotion. Ava was tall, lithe, with that luminous energy that seemed to turn heads and stop conversations. At first, Lara admired her. Then she envied her. And then, one evening, after a long savasana and shared tea, she kissed her. It wasn't planned, but neither did she resist. Ava didn't flinch. She smiled, pressed her forehead to Lara's, and whispered, "I've been waiting for you to remember." The next few weeks were filled with dizzying afternoons in Ava's candlelit apartment. Lavender incense, soft moans, tangled limbs. Lara felt reborn, desired, seen. She laughed like she hadn't in years. But after each encounter, when she went home and heard Ethan ask what she wanted for dinner, a wave of nausea would rise in her throat. Her heart would race, not from excitement, but from panic. She began checking her phone obsessively, fearing messages, craving messages. Ethan wasn't oblivious. He noticed the way she flinched when he touched her, how her smile no longer reached her eyes. But he was also distracted. At work, he had been mentoring a new intern, Mia Bright, eager and 25. Their late-night brainstorms turned into shared jokes. Shared jokes turned into flirtations. And flirtations, well, he told himself he hadn't crossed any lines. Nothing physical. But in truth, his mind had already undressed her countless times. He started going to the gym again, bought new shirts, avoided looking Lara in the eyes. One night, Lara confronted him, not about Mia, but about the emptiness. "I feel like I'm disappearing," she said. Ethan scoffed. "Then why do you act like a ghost? You're here, but not really. You don't see me anymore. Because you don't feel like home anymore," she whispered. That night, they slept back to back, each clutching a secret lover in their thoughts. But the exhilaration of forbidden pleasure didn't last. Lara began noticing something strange. Every climax with Ava left her not satisfied, but hollow. She began to cry after sex without knowing why. Her need for Ava became obsessive if Ava didn't respond to a text. Lara's mind spiraled into paranoia and despair. She would scroll through Ava's Instagram, hunting for signs, decoding every emoji. She was becoming unrecognizable, even to herself. Ava, once all warmth, grew distant. "You're getting too attached," she said one morning, slipping on a silk robe. "Too attached?" Lara snapped. "You told me I made you feel alive." Ava sighed, lighting incense. "Yes, but I didn't say I wanted to be your everything." Meanwhile, Ethan's flirtation with Mia took a dark turn. She pulled away when he got too personal, too demanding. "You're married," she reminded him. "I'm not here to rescue you." He felt ashamed, but instead of withdrawing, he lashed out at Mia, at work, at Lara. He drank more, watched porn late at night, louder than necessary, slammed doors. Something feral had awakened in both of them. Then came the night everything cracked. Lara found an email thread between Ethan and Mia. Nothing explicit, but intimate enough. She confronted him, and in the fury that followed, both their affairs came spilling out. The shouting turned to sobbing. Accusations turned to silence. "I don't even know why I did it," Ethan said at last, slouched on the living room floor. It wasn't about her. It was about feeling something. Anything. "I know," Lara said, her voice small. "Me too." In that rare stillness between wreckage and rebuilding, they began to talk not just about cheating, but about emptiness. About the constant need to be wanted, to be seen, to feel alive. "I feel like there's a black hole in me," Lara said. "No matter how much love or sex I throw into it, it's never enough." Ethan nodded, eyes glazed. "Me too." They were, it seemed, haunted by the same ghost. A few weeks later, Lara attended a weekend meditation retreat. On the second day, the teacher introduced the concept of the hungry ghost beings with large, swollen bellies and tiny, needle-thin necks. Always ravenous, never satisfied. "These are not just mythic creatures," the teacher said. "They live in us. They are the aspects of ourselves that seek pleasure, not from wholeness, but from hunger. Sex, food, validation, power, nothing satiates the hungry ghost. Because what it wants is not pleasure, but relief from pain." Lara wept silently for an hour. To be continued. When Lara returned home from the retreat, something had shifted, not dramatically, but unmistakably. She didn't rush to check her phone. She didn't crave Ava's messages with the same desperation. There was a space now between the urge and the action, between the craving and the compulsion. Ethan noticed it too. She moved differently. Quieter but not withdrawn. More like she was listening to something inside that he couldn't hear. They talked one evening, not about what had happened, but about what they were beginning to understand. "I don't think I ever really wanted Ava," Lara said slowly. "I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel like I mattered, that I still existed." Ethan nodded. "I kept chasing Mia, not because I loved her, but because she didn't see me the way you did. She didn't see the version of me I hate." They sat in the stillness. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't unbearable. It was simply true. From that space of raw honesty, Lara began to study more deeply. Buddhist psychology, trauma literature, nervous system regulation. She was determined not just to heal the marriage, but to understand her own inner landscape. She came across a passage from the Mahavajranakata Sutra that struck her. "The mind which desires is the mind that suffers. To transcend suffering, one must not suppress desire, but see through its illusion." And she began to see. She saw how she had turned Ava into a projection of salvation, how Ethan had turned Mia into a reflection of forgotten youth, how both had used erotic intensity to bypass the painful, mundane emptiness they never dared to face. But facing it actually helped. Their healing wasn't linear. There were still nights Lara cried herself to sleep, still mornings Ethan felt like a fraud. But they had begun to meet not as husband and wife, or as adversaries, or as parents, but as fellow travelers in the realm of longing. In time, they each discovered new practices, not as escape, but as transmutation. Here are the 3 key techniques Lara and Ethan began to embody. 1. Awareness without shame. They learned to observe their cravings, whether sexual, emotional, or ego, without immediate reaction or judgment. Instead of condemning the desire, they sat with it, traced its roots, asked, "What is this really asking for?" Lara, during one moment of craving contact with Ava, realized she wasn't longing for sex, she was yearning to feel chosen. Naming that need softened. 2. Rechanneling erotic energy. Instead of repressing their sexual tension or feeding it mindlessly, they explored ways to redirect that energy. Lara began painting again. Her art was sensuous, fluid, alive. Ethan took up somatic breathwork. The charge they once outsourced now became fuel for creativity, awareness, and depth. The sexual impulse didn't vanish, it evolved. 3. Sattvic relationships. Sattvic meaning pure, harmonious, balanced. They became more mindful of the kinds of people they let deeply into their lives. Not those who amplified the drama or confirmed their shadows, but those who held space with clarity and care. Ethan let go of old friendships based in sarcasm and drinking. Lara distanced herself from those who only wanted her when she was rebellious or sexy. Instead of intensity, they chose clarity. And in that clarity, something sacred returned to their relationship. They no longer needed each other to feel complete. But from that freedom, a new kind of closeness bloomed, one not based on possession or performance, but presence. Their sex became slower, less performative, more attuned. Sometimes it wasn't even sex at all, just breathing together or resting hand in hand in silence. One evening, Ethan looked at Lara and said, "I think the hunger was never about you." Lara smiled gently. "I know. And it was never about you either." They weren't trying to fill each other anymore. They were finally full enough to meet. And what of Ava? She messaged Lara months later, an apology, an invitation to reconnect. Lara felt no bitterness, but also no urgency. She wished Ava well, but her soul no longer reached for her with that desperate ache. She had made peace with her ghost, and now she could finally live among the living. Even as Lara embraced this new freedom, she understood that healing was not a destination, but a continuous practice. Some nights old cravings still whispered like ghosts in the quiet dark. The impulse to seek external validation, to grasp for fleeting pleasure, could still arise unbidden. But now, when the hungry ghost stirred, she met it with gentle curiosity rather than panic. She learned that desire itself is not the enemy. Desire is energy, powerful, creative, and vital. The danger lies in misunderstanding desire as something to be endlessly consumed rather than deeply understood. In her meditation practice, she began to cultivate a spaciousness around her impulses, mindful witnessing that allowed feelings to arise and fall away like waves on an ocean shore. This space created room for compassion, both for herself and for Ethan. Their relationship continued to evolve, no longer defined by secrecy or craving, but by honesty and acceptance. They made space for each other's growth, understanding that love can thrive in freedom rather than control. Sometimes Ethan would catch Lara's gaze and smile, a quiet knowing passing between them that transcended words. Their intimacy deepened, not because of passion's fire alone, but because they had learned to sit with the ashes and find warmth there. Lara's journey also taught her about forgiveness, not just of Ethan or Ava, but of herself. She realized that her mistakes and desires were part of her humanity, not stains on her worth. The hungry ghost, once a tormentor, had become a teacher. She found herself reaching out to others struggling with similar hungers, offering the compassion she wished she'd found sooner. In sharing her story, she discovered the power of vulnerability to transform isolation into connection. Her life was not perfect. Desire still flickered in her heart, but it no longer controlled her. Instead, desire became a doorway, a path inviting her to deeper presence, wisdom, and freedom. And that was enough. If this story stirred something quiet yet deep inside you, pass it on. It may be the light someone else is waiting for. Subscribe for more stories where the sacred meets the everyday. And remember, sometimes it is in our breaking that the light finally enters.